All right, this will be a quick lesson. We're going to do the surface area of a sphere. So what is a sphere, right? I think you're probably pretty well aware, right? It's a ball shape, globe. Although technically, I guess our globe is not a real sphere, perfect sphere. It's oblong a bit. But anyways, the actual math definition of a sphere, which you'll talk more about as you get a little older and study math a little farther, is it's actually a set of points. And it's an infinite set of points in a space, a given space, not necessarily outer space, just in a space, that are given a fixed radius. So like any point on a sphere, if you think about it, they're all the exact same distance to the center, right? So this diagram is not doing justice. But the idea is really a sphere is made up of points that are all the exact same distance from the very center of it. All right, so maybe that's a little too deep for now. But let's just focus on the surface area. So remember, the surface area, what would it take to cover the outside of this? So imagine you had a sphere and you want to paint it, right? Or you have a basketball and like how much leather do I need to cover the outside of it in? Something like that. So here's our formula. Surface area of a sphere is 4 times pi times the radius squared. I won't bore you with the breakdown on this one. It's a little much, but if you're interested, look it up on YouTube. Look up surface area of a sphere and you can get some pretty good videos that show you the breakdown of it. All right, so let's start with this first one, kind of a gross question. We got the dimensions of a human eyeball. For some reason I've chosen this as our starter. And are reasonably constant. So they're saying most eyeballs are about the same, varying only by a millimeter or two. The average diameter, okay, so all the way across the eye, right? So if we have a sphere, I'll just draw it in 2D. Remember the diameter is all the way across, so 2.5 centimeters. Calculate the surface area. All right, so surface area is 4 times pi times the radius squared. So we want the radius. So remember, if our diameter is 2.5, our radius is half of that, and half of 2.5 is 1.25. So pretty quick calculation on this one, nothing really fancy. You just got to make sure you square the 1.25 first. So remember, that squared means 1.25 times 1.25, not 1.25 times 2. Okay, so you do that first in your calculator, then hit times pi, then hit 4 times 4, and you're going to get approximately 19.6 centimeters squared, right? Pretty simple, not much to that. Let's just check out one more quick example with surface area of a sphere. All right, in this one, we're going to have to work backwards because we don't know the radius. So we had a baseball, and it says determine the radius of the baseball if we know the surface area. So let's think this through here. Let's start with our formula. Surface area is pi times, it's 4 times pi. 4 times pi times the radius squared. Now, we know the surface area. They're telling us the surface area is 215. They want us to work backwards and solve for the radius. So remember, how do we do this? We want to isolate the r. That's the thing we want to isolate. So let's ask ourselves, in normal bed mass order, in regular order, if you were solving for r, or you had the r, the radius, I mean, if you had this, what's the first thing you do to it? First, you would square it, right? All right. Then what would you do? You'd multiply it by 4 and pi, right? That's the second thing we do. So we'd multiply, I'll just put a little x times by 4 pi. Well, to isolate the r, we need to reverse those in the reverse steps. So what's the reverse? So we're going to start with the second thing, right? We're going to do the reverse steps in reverse order. So instead of multiplying by pi and 4, we're going to divide both sides by 4 and pi. So if I divide this side by 4 pi, what happens? 4, they divide and make 1, right? Pi divided by pi, it's 1. So we got to divide the other side by 4 pi. Now I'm not going to calculate that yet. I'll wait a little bit and do that in my calculator at the end. Now make sure when you do this, you go 215 divided by 4 divided by pi, or else your calculator is going to think you want to multiply the 215 by pi, okay? So make sure you hit divide twice. 215 divided by 4 divided by pi. All right, so now we have this. So now, what was the inverse, reverse operation, right, of squaring? It was to square root. Okay, so we're going to take the square root of both sides. Remember, when we take the square root of this side, it cancels out the square. They cancel each other out. And we got to square root that side. So this is what we got to basically punch in our calculator. What is the square root of 215 divided by 4 divided by pi? And if you do that, I'll just bring it over here. I'm running out of room. The radius is approximately 4.1 centimeters. All right, so there's an example where you have to work backwards. That's all. All right, so try the questions, and there's one more lesson to go.